Hi, my name is Aaron Scott. My partners in this project are Abby Phillips, Andy Rowe, Anissa Richards, and Jordy Roberts. And our theory that we did our project on is the Motivational Systems Theory, as you can see. Okay, so the Motivational Systems Theory, a rough definition of it, is the achievement of goals due to a combination of motivation, skill, biology, and a responsive environment. Those are the four factors that play a significant role in this theory. Motivation is basically the internal drive that you have to complete a goal or to accomplish something. Skill is basically the talents that you have per se honed over the years, like if you're very good at a sport, if you're a good chess player, something like that. Basically just the talents you have. Biology is the inherited traits you have. So like we will be using a basketball analogy throughout this presentation quite often. So if you're 6.5 feet tall, you have a bit more of an advantageous biology than someone who's 4 feet tall, obviously. And then also responsive environment. You're not going to be able to achieve your goals well unless you get positive or negative feedback from your environment, just based on how you're doing and what you're doing, etc. So in this theory, they basically split your goals into two different sections. So the first one is the goal content, which is like the end result, what you want to happen. So like, for example, I want to, at the end of 6 months, I want to lose 10 pounds or something like that. That 10 pounds is the consequence or the result. That would be the goal content. The goal process, however, is the strategy that you're going to be using to define the goal, to actually accomplish the end goal, the goal content. So the process could include like a SMART goal, which is like specific, measurable, etc. Things that you use to make your goal easy to keep track of. Also non-conflicting goals, which would be like, okay, I want to lose 10 pounds and I also want to like increase my vegetable intake. Now if my goals were to be, I want to lose 10 pounds and I want to win an ice cream eating contest, then we have conflicting goals, and that becomes more of a problem. Okay, and then also you have a difficult but attainable goal, which is basically like something that it challenges you, but not to the extent that you're like overworked. Like for example, what we learned about flow this year, you want to have that be like right in the middle. You don't want to do something that's too easy because then you get easily bored from it. You don't want to do something that's too difficult because then you end up overworking yourself and getting discouraged because you're not obtaining that goal. So for me personally, for example, like an easy goal would be like, oh, I want to go out and run a mile. Well, I'm a cross-country runner. I do that on a daily basis. That's a very easy goal that would not challenge me. A very difficult goal would be, I want to bench press 400 pounds. Being that I weigh 135 pounds, benching 400 pounds would be pretty much impossible. So that would be something that would get me out of my flow and make me very discomforted and discouraged.
The Motivational Systems Theory, also known as the MST, is based on a living systems framework and considers all contexts involved. This is an important aspect of the theory because it regards the fact that we are living human beings within a living systems framework, and that it considers all contexts involved. So this kind of takes the approach of individuals as holistic beings and considers not only one context, but every context that is involved in a situation. According to this theory, achievement or competence equals motivation times skill divided by biology times responsive environment. I think this is a very important way to look at achievement or competence because it doesn't just take into account one factor but has a number of variables involved. So for example, if you were taking a basketball player, it's not only the skill level that this player has, but also has to do with their biology, so how tall they are, how short they might be. It has to do with how successful they will be. And also a responsive environment, so having good coaching staff, having a good team to work with. All of those things play into achievement or competence. So this also, I think, increases self-efficacy as you can can't just account for one variable. According to this theory, goals, emotions, and personal agency beliefs interact to determine motivation. Once again, this is just showing numerous variables that are involved in motivation, and it's not just based on one factor. This theory goes into goals and kind of subdivides it into two categories, one being goal content and one being goal processes. I thought this was a good perspective to take, as many times people just look at goal content, so where they want to go and why they want to go there, but goal processes is really dealing with how you're going to get there, and you need both goal content and goal processes in order to reach and achieve your goals. The motivational systems theory encompasses both desired within-person consequences and desired person-environment consequences. Ford assumed that behavior is usually guided by multiple goals simultaneously, and Ford's basic notion is that multiple goals that are aligned and do not conflict have a synergistic effect on behavior. So he's basically saying that when you're trying to achieve something, there are multiple goals that are in line with that. It's not just one goal, but you actually have many that are working together simultaneously. And when these multiple goals are aligned, they have a synergistic effect on behavior. So motivation is highly correlated with behavior and has a positive effect on that. Whereas, in the opposite scenario, if you have goals that are conflicting, it will have more of a negative effect on behavior and inhibit your competence and achievement.
Looking at the motivational systems theory, we took the negative side and looked at how if it is lacking in one of the four parts of motivation, skill, biology, or responsive environment, then you can't necessarily get the best results pertaining to the goal you have set in mind. When looking at a basketball player, we can see that if he is 5 foot, he's not exactly going to be able to make it to the NBA if that's his goal. But if he has a good support unit at home who's encouraging him along the way, and then has the skill necessary to play basketball, he might have the motivation necessary to make it into college ball, but his biology lacks the ability to reach the net or to block a taller player. By looking at this, we can see that there's a lack of biology that creates the motivation necessary to complete the goal that he has set to make it to the NBA. This also shows that if his goal is to make it to the NBA, he might not necessarily even be looked at by a college scout if he's a 5 foot basketball player.
Alright, so I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the green hat, or the different improvements that we think could have been made with Ford's motivational systems theory. So in looking at his theory, he uses this equation that looks at all of the different elements that could make a person either motivated or make them to have good goals, goal content, goal processes, all of those things. But what we saw as a bit of a limit to the different equation that he created was that he left out one of the biggest constructs that we've been talking about in class right now. So looking at it through the lens of curiosity, we are just asking a couple questions of this equation. So if a person was curious about different areas of their life, that they don't have any beliefs or practices doing it, they maybe don't even have the biological factors necessary for these things, which is part of the equation. But if they're curious about them, if they have a desire to explore new things or to learn about new areas of their life, would that, when put into the equation, actually change the motivation that they could have? Because part of the equation that was given was environmental factors and biological factors. And Ford discussed a lot with the fact that a person can be as motivated as they want to be, but if they're not biologically capable, or if the environment isn't ready for it, they can't be motivated and they can't actually reach those goals. But we are wondering, does this actually limit a person's curiosity? A person wondering if I could be able to someday do this, or could be able to someday be in a place where the environment is ready for me to complete these things. And so we think a big improvement with Ford's theory would be throwing curiosity into the mix, seeing what a person asking questions of themselves, of their personal agency beliefs, and more, what that would change in this equation. And then we also were looking at the way that Ford measured academic success. So he looked at academic success as receiving good grades. He looked at different studies of people seeing how that equation then affected their motivation, which changed their academic success. And he said these students, written in his paper, these students all received better grades than those who weren't motivated through that equation. And as we discussed in class, grades can actually be a very extrinsic motivator. So something that you get the grade, it's completed, and your motivation ends there. You're not actually motivated to learn. Again, back to being curious. And so we think he could have really improved by differing how you actually grade or measure academic success, looking at it as something other than grades, maybe asking good questions, participation in class, all of those things. We also were looking at academic success, and he brought in this idea of seeking approval, of the fact that those who have either the environmental factors or motivational desires to seek approval from others, also that having a correlating factor with having academic success. And as we read through that part of his research, we were just wondering if that was actually a positive thing, if we should be okay with seeking approval for others in students being something that gives them more success or more motivation, when in the end that's another extrinsic motivator, when it's getting people's approval, and then how far does that actually get you? How far does that motivate you? And so that is just some of the improvements that we thought Ford could have in his motivational systems theory.
The 5 relevant categories we chose were specificity, incorporation of other theories, focus, cognitive processes, and view of human nature. With specificity, we thought that the individual must have the correct genetics and environment to be successful at the different activities that they choose to do. We chose the incorporation of other theories because the motivational systems theory brought together many different ideas from other theories that we looked at and different constructs into one motivational model. Focus we chose because it integrated the different constructs into this theory. You have to have great focus to be able to accomplish the different tasks that this theory demands. The fourth one we chose were cognitive processes. We must be creative, willing to explore and seek new knowledge that we don't know to be able to reach our goals within the motivational systems theory. And the last category we chose was the view of human nature. And we chose this because one portion of the motivational systems theory involved having interaction goals and being involved in a community. And I believe that building relationships and accomplishing goals is a huge part of human nature and what we desire to do in our everyday lives.
Various components of Ford's theory has kept me motivated, hopeful, and encouraged to not only continue rehabilitation with my trainers and doctors, but also to be present, to encourage and be there for my teammates throughout this season. Ford proposed that multiple goals that are aligned have a synergistic effect on behavior, and I saw this positive effect in my own life with track and field. I did have specific goals set on performance, and I was unable to reach those because of my injury, having to do it at specific times in my events. And that sort of achievement, but I also had other goals such as glorifying the Lord, encouraging my teammates, and growing my relationships with my team and Lord through this season that I was also able to focus in on and accomplish. So that I think helped keep me motivated to continue to be there with the team and helped keep my eyes on the ultimate goal that I had in mind.
Alright, so in my own personal application of Ford's theory, I really zoomed in on his perspective on approach and avoidance in the way that I grew up. So a lot of my growing up was focused on extrinsic motivators. As we've seen in class a couple of times, I'm the one person who raises my hand when we're asked if our parents paid us for our grades. And so the big thing about that was I was given very tangible measures of my success. And because of this, I would see okay, a good grade equals money, so that's something that I know I can succeed at, so I'll approach that. Because I had high personal agency beliefs around my grades or around academic work, I would always approach those challenges because I believed that I could complete those things. The problem with extrinsic motivators, though, like being paid, is that all of the other things that I didn't have high personal agency beliefs for, I would avoid out of the fear of failing, out of the fear of not getting approval from others, out of the fear of just not doing it well, not doing it well enough. And so that actually really limited the number of things I was curious in, the number of things I desired to do, and really limited the different things I explored in growing up. And so that's something that has been really growing for me in college, is stepping away from this avoidance way of life, this very extrinsically motivated way of life, and stepping into having a bit higher personal agency beliefs and looking at the way different factors, like Ford looks at different factors of my whole person, can actually create those personal agency beliefs and change the way I approach new situations.
Alright, so as an introvert, I often find it really difficult to work at building and maintaining my relationships. That's one thing that I think I need to work on a lot, and I think that that's an area of my life that I can really apply the motivational systems theory to. Just the different aspects of it, like for example the motivation aspect, like I need to be very motivated in my drive to seek out people and be intentional about community and just how I interact with people, and trying to continue building relationships in my experiences at college. Also like the biology aspect of it, like human beings were made to be in community with each other essentially, and like, I mean, God even says in Genesis, it's not good for man to be alone. So just the biology aspect of it and how we're intended to be in community with one another. So I think that this theory definitely applies, like that's only 2 examples, but there are numerous other aspects of the theory that apply to how you build, how you maintain relationships, particularly the external stimuli and how you respond to your environment. That's something that's very important to relationships. So I think it's very applicable to me and this particular category.
The personal application I set for myself was goal setting with running. I just learned a lot about how everything has to be right to be able to accomplish a goal that I've set for myself. You have to have a correct frame of mind, good coaching, good teammates to work with, and good exercising and training plans. I just saw how there's so many parts to reaching a goal that really aren't considered all the time, but they make a lot of sense and they're very logical.
When thinking about the motivational systems theory, I looked at the idea of how to grow in my faith as far as a Christian. And I realized that if I read the Bible, it's not only necessary for me to have the motivation to read, but also to apply it to my life and to be involved in a system of people who allows the support to express my faith in a way that is growing for me. As far as biology goes, I have the ability to read the Bible and apply it in my life, but also I have the ability to act out what has been commanded of me in the Bible in order to show what Christ's love really is.
Or I'll start with, I need to, wait, stop. Things that have, I can't do this.
Jesus.